Okay, this is video 2, so let's continue and take care of the next step with this flower here. All right, and also I prepped the next set of scrolls, so it's kind of like this, just so they're ready to go. All right, so back to our central oval here, or whatever we want to call it. Let me clear out my brush a little bit. So I like my darkness here. I might just want to make sure and add a little bit more because I want the paint to flow and I want this darker. So the second time around usually doesn't take as long. And we just repeat the same exact steps that we did the first time around. I might have brought that in a little too soon, but I'm going to bring some more black here. Okay. Again, the goal with acrylic is that we want to have it as opaque as we can. All right. And there isn't a tremendous amount of blending in Holling-Dahl. There's overlay. I should say in Rogaland, especially American Rogaland, there's a lot of blending with that. All right, so we brought that color up. Now let's bring the red earth. I'm going to keep that going here. Okay. Up and around. And then we get some nice blending, so it gives that kind of sunset effect. And I'm going to go up, and then I'm going to blend back down again. All right. And then I'm going to blend back up because that just gets all the little lines that you might have taken out. So you have a more consistent transition from dark to light. Then I come back with the last color, the vermilion, and notice I'm starting halfway. I mentioned that in the last video. Okay. I'm going to blend down and then blend back up again. All right, so that's pretty much set to go. So let's take care of our friends here. So remember, it's raw sienna. Okay. And I'm not going to do all of them. I'm going to do half of it so that you can see. We don't need to do the whole thing for the demonstration right now. So notice now once I bring the raw sienna in how much more opaque it is. Raw sienna is actually a pretty transparent color. That's why you need to really do 2 coats with it. Okay, now that's nice and wet. I'm leaving paint on my brush. I'm going to watch out for the blue there. Side load there. Okay. All right. And notice I start at the top, so I'm going to thin, pushing down thick, and then thin. And I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm just going to work my way down into the wetness of the raw sienna. I might have to pat some of the paint out. Okay. And then we're just going to work our way back up again. Okay. And that gives a nice blend there. So let's do that second one. Here we go. So same thing. Thin, thick, thin. And I'm going to work my way down. Blend down. Then blend back up again. Just work my way back up. Get that nice blend in, and then back down again. Again, I'm not worried if it's not perfect. Okay, then tip into my white again, blot out, and then we're going to do a nice solid, or maybe not solid, but a nice definition line there, and that's part of your finishing this up. Okay, and around, so then we leave that alone. Good morning, dear. Morning. I have company right now coming to visit with coffee. We'll do a morning clink. Clink. Okay. All right, so next step, we're going to go back to these petals on the side, and they're a light to dark as well. So we're going to start again with the raw sienna. I'm going to take the raw sienna, and I still have my number 4 brush here. Remember, we're doing thick to thin. I have a little bump there. We'll take that out. Okay. So thick to thin, thick to thin. We're just going to layer that in there. Okay. And I'm actually going to bring that paint down because I want to do a little blending here. Now, I know I just said that there's not a tremendous amount of blending, but I like a little blending with it to give transition. So I think what I also did on this, in this very closest part to our central flower, I actually tipped a little into the raw sienna. I'm just going to bring a little right here, wipe it out, and then just kind of blend it in a little bit. Okay. Then bring that out. I'm not worried about wiping my paint away. I'm going to have plenty. There's my New Yorkese that comes gonna. I'm gonna. All right, now I'm going to, not cleaning my brush out, but I'm going to tip into the yellow oxide. I'm going to come to this middle petal. I'm going to round a little and bring it down. You may need a teeny bit of medium for get a little flow, but don't use too much of it, because if you do, it will pull the paint up and you'll lose that opaqueness. You can tip into just a little bit of water. That will help also, just to keep the paint kind of fresh. But see, I put a little too much water, so you can see it starts coming up, so, but that's okay. I'm going to go a little bit into that first petal, down into the second petal, just pull it down. I'm going to tip into my Turner's yellow, and if you don't have Turner's yellow, that's okay. Do the yellow oxide on this. That's fine, because we're going to use white and go over. So we just blend these lines out, right? If you need a little more paint, don't be afraid to add it. So now I'm going to just wipe some of this out. I'm going to tip my brush into the white. I'm going to start at this bottom petal here. I'm going to follow the outside line of it, the underside of it. And I'm just going to start blending back up into these other petals here. Wipe a little out. I might want to smooth this out a little bit. So I'm just going to smooth that out. And there you have a nice transition with the colors. Remember, we're going to do detail work on this, so this, we can clean up any edges, we can work with anything with this. Alright, since I have yellow on my brush, we have a couple of little yellow strokes here. I'm going to go into raw sienna, because raw sienna is my top one. I'm going to follow this, and remember, you can go thick to thin or thin to thick. I'm going to pull it around, and it's okay if I have a little white in my brush still. I'm not worried about that, because remember, we're undercoating. We can always come back and overstroke with these. If you're working with oils, it's not a problem. Just clean out your brush, or smush, put your brush into your little paper towels, smush the paint out of it to get any of that extra white in, and then go into your raw sienna. Okay, and then I'm going to understroke this second one here, and they kind of overlap, so that's okay. And pull that down. And this last one is going to be white. So you can, if you like the yellow undertone, you can understroke, or you can just leave it and we'll wait for it to do later with the white. All right, back to this nice big red scroll here. Switching brushes, I'm going back to my main scroll, or my number 6, whichever is the biggest brush. If you're using a filbert, that's fine. Okay, I went back into my red earth, and I'm just going to push that down, and I'm going to overstroke it now. Okay, and we're going to pull this down. So this will make the color more true, because remember, acrylics dry darker than when they're in the tube, but when you do various coats, then it brings that true color back out again. Okay, and we're going to bring this little stroke here. And notice I'm not worried, if I don't get the full stroke in, if I want to try to pull the paint down, I'm good with that. Okay, and pull this down, turn it towards me. This one I'm going to do thin to thick. I'm going to do a little bump. Get my little bump there. Now, don't take any of the paint out. You've pretty much used a fair amount of the paint that's on your brush. I'm going to tip into the burnt sienna just on one side. Make sure your red earth is facing to your left and your burnt sienna to your right, or the underside of here, and I'm just going to do a little stroke to give a little highlight of darker color in there. And I'm not worried if that's not totally blended in. I'm okay with that. Kind of like that. I'm going to do the same here. You need more, just add a little more. And just bring that down. Okay, that just gives that little definition. Now, while it's still wet, I'm going to squeeze some of this paint out, not all of it. I'm going to go into my vermilion. And this one I'm not going to swirl. I'm just going to flatten it out. Okay. Now we're going to start here. Don't be scared. Right at the top here, I'm going to push those bristles down. I'm going to turn them. And I'm going to give this highlight of vermilion right there. Done. Don't have to do anything else to it. I can do the same on this little guy here. I can even use the same brush, but I just don't push hard as hard. And I just give it a little highlight of vermilion. And it's done. We're just going to leave it. Not a problem. Okay, I'm going to end this one here.